Half a day and good morning. The Committee on General Government Operation and Appropriation is now called to order. Today is Thursday, February 29th. The time now is 9 o'clock. In compliance with open government law, the notice for this public hearing were posted on GovGuam Public Notice Portal, KGTF TV Channel 21, Docomo Channel 117, and disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on Thursday, February 15th, and on February 27th. We have two bills we'll be entertaining this morning. The first one would be Bill 234-37, introduced by myself, Senator San Agustin, co-sponsored by Vice Speaker Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes, and Senator Roy Canata, and Senator Dwayne Snickers. An act to amend Section 90.308, Article 7, Chapter 90, Title 9, Guam Code Annotated, relative to increasing the pledge or reservation of revenues of the Department of Correction Modernization Act of 2021, and followed by Bill 241-37 COR, introduced by Senator Tom Fisher and co-sponsored by myself, Senator San Agustin, an act to add a new section 6110A of Chapter 6, Title 3 to Guam Code Annotated, relative to candidate for office for election. With that, we'll begin with Bill 234-37. The physical note was requested in January. It was just received today, and it is being provided to all my colleagues that are here. And that we have one individual that will be speaking on the Department of Correction. That is the Director, Chief Fred Berdalio. With that, I'd like to read out the general rules for this public hearing. Please provide my legislative staff with any document for photocopying and distribution. Panel members are asked to remain in the room for questions or additional testimony as may be desired by members of the committee. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the public hearing. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum will be restricted from participating and will be escorted and removed from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on, that you speak into the microphone. You will state your name and your title for the record. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues that have joined me this morning. We have Senator Tom Fisher and Senator Chris Barnett. And with that, I'd give my opening statement to Bill 234-37. Bill 234-37 CR was introduced by myself, Senator San Agustin, along with my fellow co-sponsors, Vice Speaker Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes, Senator Roy Canata, Senator Dwayne Snickers, affirming our unwavering commitment to our community safety. This legislation is amending Public Law 36-57, the Department of Correction Modernization Act of 2021. It is not just about the numbers, but about the lives it seeks to transform. By elevating the funding for the Guam Department of Correction from $5 million to $15 million, we address the pressing need for a safer and more efficient correctional facility that is mandated to ensure safe and secure custody of those incarcerated and awaiting trial. Our proposed increase from the general fund is not merely a financial adjustment, but a strategic response to DOC's struggle in fulfilling its mandates and achieving or maintaining national standards. Inflation in building costs from 2021 to the present and the efficiency to modernize propel us to act decisively. For nearly 20 years, the Department of Correction facility has been failing, and now is the time to take action to ensure the safety of not only inmates, but also DOC workers. Our goal is clear: to fortify DOC's ability to meet national standards and mandatory compliance rules, fostering a secure and supportive environment for rehabilitation. This funding surge is not just an investment, it's a declaration that we believe in the potential for positive change in every individual within the correctional system. I am appreciative of my co-sponsors' support, and I eagerly anticipate the constructive discussion ahead as we collectively strive for a safer Guam. I'd like to also recognize Speaker Therese Elias joined us this morning, and we'll begin with Chief Director Berdalio with your testimony. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Honorable Senator Joe S. San Agustin, Speaker Terlahi, Senator Chris Barnett, and Senator Tom Fisher. My name is Fred Berdalio Jr. I'm the Director of the Department of Corrections, and I'm going to read my testimony here. I am providing my support testimony for the proffered legislation Bill 234-37 COR that provides provisions to amend Section 90.308, Article 7, Chapter 90, Title 9 Guam Code Annotated, relative to increasing the pledge or reservation or revenues of the Department of Corrections Modernization Act of 2021. The intent of the passage of Department of Corrections Modernization Act of 2021 was to ensure that the construction of a new prison for Guam would be accomplished and with the necessary financial resources to address the challenges of existing antiquated infrastructure and an increased prison inmate population. The increase of funding from $5 million to $15 million, as indicated when the amended provisions of Bill 234-37 COR, demonstrates an effort to secure more revenues necessary for the financial costs of construction of the new prison with expanded space and modernized infrastructure security systems. Before I say thank you and Sejus Masi, I just want to emphasize, Senators and Madam Speaker, that we want this prison to be built in Mangilaw, right where we're at the current space that we have at Department of Corrections. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Director. And with that, I'd like to just emphasize and explain pretty much that when we first introduced this bill, not this bill, but the bill prior, Public Law 36-57, it was identified that the $5 million, if they went to the bond, it could hopefully bring in $70 million to help the construction of DOC. But because of the rising cost of construction and the need to try to fulfill as much of DOC's requirements, I introduced the amendment to increase it to $15 million. We need to understand that also, if this bill was to pass, I'll make the appropriate amendment as recommended by my colleagues, that the funds will be identified up front before the next fiscal year. So the planning can begin now. Okay, that's the intent. And normally what happens is when we identify, when they go to the bond market, we identify that money up front before the budget comes out with the appropriation. So in other words, if there was a hope that we had $800,000 for appropriation, we would take off first what we need to pay the bond. Then we would provide that to the colleagues and to the administration that this is the only amount of money that's going to be appropriated out. And that's how budgets are passed.
Okay.
All right? And with that, Madam Speaker, would you like to speak? And then I can go to, okay, Senator Barnett, because you oversee the...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Director Berdalio. I guess just for the viewing public, I would just ask a status update on the effort to construct a new prison, where we're at.
Yeah. Basically, we were informed, Major Anton received information from the Department of Public Works that there are two bidders that submitted bids for the architecture design. I believe several months ago when me and Major Anton went down to the Department of Corrections and met potential bidders, there appeared to be, looked like about 5 individuals from different organizations. But their Public Works, the person in contact had informed Major Anton 2 bids were received in that for the architecture design of the prison, the new prison.
Thank you, sir. Also for the public, can you describe where the new prison will be built?
Okay, I won't, even though there's no map here, if you just go into the facility, into the entrance of the Department of Corrections, if you look to the right, there's an area where it's a lot of land there, and they're even raising a pig. That's called the 24 area there. The master plan calls for 4 phases. Phase 1 would be in that general location, but there's a flexibility to change some of the plans on what facility to start first. For instance, and I had discussed this also with Senator San Agustin, and then with the team up there in Annalu, of ways to sort of like cut costs and get to what really needs to be built first. Instead of concentrating and building a parking lot in that area there and do potential soil sampling, I'm looking at concentrating where the domes are at. That's actually in phase 2 where the domes are at. Those domes were built there with the U.S. Customs and Immigration, and it was actually sort of like federalized, but signed over back to the government of Guam to Senator, not Senator, but Jose San Agustin, who was the former director who signed off on that back to Customs and Immigration. So I've explained and I suggested that should be the area to concentrate on first. It's just a miracle that during this last typhoon that those domes didn't blow away. And every single time there is going to be a typhoon or some kind of emergency, we have to move all those people out of those domes into the main facility, including the visiting area. So I don't want to wait until that sort of thing happens. That would be the main area and focus of where construction should begin at.
Thank you, Mr. Bordallo. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing further.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Senator Fisher, you have any questions for the chief? Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And of course, we support this prison. It's been in law for a while now, and I'm glad the plans are completed.
Yeah.
And my only concern is this bill saying 15 million from the general fund appropriated every year. And I just, of course, would like to know how that will impact the other agencies, because that's 15 million that we obviously have appropriated elsewhere. And so I guess the chair is proposing that we're going to put this up front in the budget, but I'm still worried what effect that will have on other agencies. But otherwise, BBMR has suggested that we are going to do lease back from 2025 general fund revenues instead of any 2024 general fund revenues. Do you have an estimate of the cost or any kind of financial estimates?
Well, I've actually been just reviewing previous discussions on this and previous amounts that have been provided, and sometimes there's an estimate of something in the area of $50 million for the first phase, right? Up to $160 million overall total cost, right? And when we're looking at having a part of the plan is especially concentrating the domes, having a construction of pretrial, detention area for the pretrial, the ones are highest population of 400, right? In that, if that's part of the first phase, as I suggested, I'm suggesting the domes be the focus of it to construct capacity for about 400 some pretrial detainees. That would include federal. It would be in that neighborhood of about 50-some thousand for that first phase, right? Now you're thinking about the other
50 million.
50 million.
Yeah.
50 million. I take 50 million, right? So one of the things to ease some of that potential financial cost, and I've been discussions with the front office, and I also shared this with Senator San Agustin, is that I've been in contact with the Bureau of Prisons, this Mr. Randall Burleson, and he's the procurement executive and senior deputy assistant director for Federal Bureau of Prisons, and he's also been tasked by the director of prisons, Khalida, to engage with us and have some discussions on our plans. And this was on February 14th. But on January, we met with some military officials who came down to Agana to look at the current federal detention site there in Agana. Because with the military buildup, they're looking at the brig and naval station that closed down. Now they're looking at what capacity Department of Corrections is going to have in their modernization plan. So with DOD, with Federal Bureau of Prisons, and then there's another one, the U.S. Marshals right now. I've communicated with our current U.S. Marshal for Guam, Fred Sablon, who's also communicating with his higher-ups, because on the memorandum of agreement for those feds to be that are incarcerated, the federal detainees there for a fee, sooner or later that place in Agana is going to be closed down, and it's going to be incorporated into that one up there in Manila. So again, I say an estimate of $50 million for this first phase, especially with a capacity of 400 some pretrial detainees.
All right, thank you. Have you, Director, have you explored whether ARP funds could be used for the 50 million instead of financing it? I mean, it's going to be more expensive for us.
I haven't looked at exploring that. I think with the finance team, because with this modernization act, it actually established what is called a construction committee, and the chair of that would be actually Gita, right? And I would assume that, and she's not here to speak on behalf of Gita or BBMR, but I'm assuming they're looking at different other potential areas of revenue they could use toward the Department of Corrections Modernization Act, the fulfillment of the new prison.
Yeah, because BBMR doesn't make an estimate of the total costs, but they are suggesting lease back. But whenever they come in with the lease back, we always ask them to show us, the total amounts, and we do still have ARP money available if this is the cost for the phase one. I just want to make sure. I guess I was hoping BBMR or DOA would be here, because if we appropriate this amount annually, up to 15 million. Not only will it impact our agencies, I want to see whether this is going to impact our financing of a new hospital, which we're going to do similarly. But those are my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And with that note, as you identified the ARP, when we make the amendment, we're going to add that as one of the priorities, that ARP be used to assist the cost of this. Because if any money, any funds available within the administration to assist the building of facilities and to identify its importance, that's going to be very important on the bill. And we relate that, and then I would hope that in the very near future, and I understand where BBMR is coming from the lease back, and I agree with it. It's similar to how we have the lease back for all the schools. And if we look at some of the schools, they're like 60, 80, $100 million. But how much do we pay every year? Maybe 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 million. We don't pay 100 million a year. No different is that if the 50 million is used, then Gita, when they go to the bond market, they'll identify who's going to finance it and what the requirement to pay back each year. Then once that's identified, then that's part of the budget process. And with that, there's no one else to testify. I'd like to thank everyone for being here, and my colleague for being here, and Chief for being here, Director, attending this hearing and providing feedback and suggestion. Bill 234 to 37 COR, public hearing is now adjourned. The time now is 9:19. And with that, Sizuz Masi. Thank you, Chief. And we'll just give it a couple of minutes. We'll go on a recess, and then we'll call in the next panel for the next bill. Thank you. Here we go. Half a day, the Committee on General Government Operation and Appropriations is now called to order. Today is Thursday, February 29. The time now is 9:21. In compliance with the open government law, the notices of this public hearing were posted on the GovGuam Public Notice Portal, KGTF TV and Channel 21, Docomo Channel 117, and disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on Thursday, February 15, and on Tuesday, February 27. The bill we'll be addressing this morning is Bill 241-37 CR, introduced by Senator Tom Fisher and co-sponsored by myself, Senator Snoxing, an act to add a new section 6110A on Chapter 6, Title 3, Guam Code, annotated relative to candidates for office for election. We'll begin with the physical note was requested on February 9 and was received on February 15. Those participating on Bill 241-37 are cordially invited to the panel. We have Mrs. Pangilinan from the Guam Election Commission. The general rules for this public hearing. Please provide my legislative staff with any document for photocopying and distribution. Panel members are asked to remain in the room for questions or additional testimony that may be desired by members of the committee. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of the general rule of conduct will result in removal from the public hearing room. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum will be restricted from participating and will be escorted from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. You state your name and your title. I'd like to acknowledge the president of the author of the bill, Senator Tom Fisher. Good morning. And with that, I'd ask Senator Fisher to give his opening statement for his bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's 2024. I'm 64 years old, 63, and I never, ever thought it would be possible or necessary to bring a bill like this forward. I brought it forward because I think, well, I know there to be an emergency on Guam and an emergency in the United States. It is an extraordinarily fraught time as we are only 251 days from a general election. I think everyone in the room knows that although this bill applies to Guam, it is very much in the spirit and shadow of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution as context. When Congress created the Organic Act, they did not share with us the protections of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. The Section 3 of that amendment prohibits seditionists, traitors, people who have taken oath to protect and defend and support the Constitution of the United States. It prohibits them from appearing on a ballot. The 14th Amendment, as it applies to the nation and the states, keeps people off the ballot throughout the states. This law that we are pushing forward will also keep seditionists and traitors off our ballot. I think the best way to express why I have done this is to let you know that some time ago, approximately a month, I wrote a letter as a member of the Guam Bar Association. I wrote the letter to the Guam Bar expressing my alarm and asking for action. If I may, I will read that letter to you. This is a letter to the Guam Bar Association from me. Those of us who have undertaken the study and practice of law have assumed a special obligation towards the execution of our laws. That obligation, which was freely undertaken by every member of the Guam Bar, requires us to jealously protect and defend the United States and her laws. It's an obligation we took when we swore an oath and were admitted to the bar, it's the same obligation we senators undertook to the people of Guam and to our Creator when we accepted this office. We promised to jealously protect and defend the laws of Guam, jealously protect and defend the laws of the United States. The Constitution, the organic document, the fertile bed, I suppose, from which the United States grew, is under threat. A present candidate for the presidency, Donald John Trump of Florida, has by action and intent attempted to overthrow the Constitution of the United States. I don't think that that phrase has been uttered probably since 1805, 1806, when Aaron Burr attempted to rend the Louisiana Territory from the United States. How has Trump done so? He has done so by impeding the peaceful transfer of power upon the expiration of his term in 2021. Since then, Trump has repeatedly lied about the presence of any outcome determinative fraud in the election of 2020. Why is that important? It was upon that very lie, that hope to maintain power, that greed, that he chose to sacrifice the Constitution for personal ambition. He lied about the presence of this voting, and his lies continue to this day. Yesterday, I was driving home to Talafofo, and I turned on the radio. It was in the afternoon, and there's an elderly gentleman who has a radio show in the afternoons here. And he actually said that, I think this is an accurate quote, he actually said that new evidence which is coming to light proves that Donald Trump was screwed in the last election. Naturally, he didn't offer any evidence, and that's been the pattern since 2020. Accusations of lies or accusations of fraud are made and never backed up because there was no fraud. On or before January 6, 2021, Trump conspired to incite. He incited, he abetted armed rebellion against the United States. This was an assault upon the fundamental tenet of our Constitution, which is the peaceful transfer of power. The executive power of the United States shall be vested in a President of the United States of America. He shall hold his office during the term of 4 years, and together with the Vice President, chosen for the same term, be elected as follows. In other words, a president is elected for a term, and at the expiration of the term, he must leave office. And at that very moment, a new individual becomes President of the United States. An attempt to thwart the peaceful transfer of power which occurred in January 6th of 2021 is treason against the United States. For 250 years, almost unlike any other nation on earth, we transfer power peacefully. The transfer is unremarkable. The transfer is in no way strange. It is administrative in nature. The Vice President receives mahogany boxes in the floor of the House and opens them, and he counts the electors submitted by each state. No more. Vice President has no authority to interfere with the count. He merely acts as a magistrate, receiving the votes and opening them. And Donald Trump tried to stop that. He went so far as to incite a crowd to potentially hang his vice president in order to prevent the peaceful transfer of power. This isn't. As I began my remarks, I think I said that this is a very strange time. It's a very fraught time for the United States. Again, I'll repeat, I don't think no one in this room has ever been alive when this sort of threat has gathered on the horizon. Nobody in this room. Great parties come and go in the United States. We think of the Whigs and their collapse in the 1850s, Democratic Republicans and their collapse in the 1820s, even the early Tory movement, going on into the Dixiecrats. And, well, that's hardly a great party, but the Dixiecrats and the Know-Nothings. These parties come and go. They are not permanent. They are not given to us by God. They are not ordained in the establishment and foundation of the Constitution. At this time in history, there are those who wish that voices be silent, that we be quieted. I don't know what wing, I don't know what party they come from. Some of them identify as Republicans, but I think that they are more accurately referred to as Trumpists, a peculiar outlying wing of a great and necessary party. The Republican Party of Guam, the Republican Party of the United States, was founded by anti-slavery Democrats and Whigs who also opposed slavery. That is the foundation of this magnificent, great, and necessary party. An aberration is present, and that is Trumpism. They're unhappy, I will tell you, that I am going forward with this. I heard on the radio a young man by the name of Sean Gumatauta, who I believe he has some sort of a position within the party, told me that because I'm speaking out like this, I would be punished. And indeed I was. I got a spanking from an individual by the name of Juan Carlos Benitez. Juan Carlos, who is, at that time, I think, was the head of the Republican Party, said, scolding me, told me that it must be noted that we have also been disappointed with some of my statements and speeches that do not reflect our party and its values. An editorial remark, Juan Carlos Benitez is absolutely wrong. The values of the Republican Party are inclusiveness, equality, conservatism, and compassion, and a deep, deep, deep love for the Constitution of the United States of America. Those are the values of the Republican Party. I also recently received an email from an individual named Manny Cruz, and he tells me, and this is just about as Trumpist as you can get, Senator Tom Fisher, he hopes, can see the light and fall in line. Fall in line. Those of us of a certain age, that language is not foreign. We've heard it before in other contexts. Well, the only line I'm going to fall in with is my loyalty to the Constitution and my loyalty to the oath. That being said, this act, which my friend Senator Joe has agreed to support me on, is designed to keep traitors, is designed to keep seditionists off our ballot. I am interested to hear in the coming days, I hope, how it is that somebody could oppose this and think it would be appropriate to allow a seditionist, a traitor to the Constitution, to appear on our ballot. Intuitively, you would think there would be no opposition to something like that. There may be opposition to that, I don't know. A canard, which is frequently raised, is, well, if we do that, who's to decide that Donald Trump was a seditionist or a traitor, or anybody was a seditionist or a traitor? How can we decide that? There's a lady here in the room who will get first crack at that if this law passes. Just as the Guam Election Commission can determine if an individual is foreign-born and incapable of appearing on a ballot, or convicted of a felony and therefore unable to appear on a ballot, or underage and therefore unable to appear on a ballot, The Guam Election Commission, provided with sufficient evidence, may decide that an individual cannot, because of seditious behavior, appear on the ballot. That is the Election Commission's job. Now, I would expect that a petitioner or a respondent in that question might be unhappy. That person will then walk across the street to the Superior Court of Guam and get a writ to correct the error of the Election Commission. Again, a petitioner or a respondent undoubtedly will be unhappy with the outcome of the Superior Court and then will march up the stairs to the Supreme Court and ask them to make the decision. It's not difficult. It's not difficult at all. It's regular, just like the transfer of power was supposed to be. It's regular, unremarkable, unsurprising, and unexpected. This is the way the government works. This is the way the Constitution works. I'm not proud. I'm going to wrap up here, Senator. I can't say that I'm proud to have brought this bill because of the circumstances which require it. I can say that at this point I am concerned, and many are concerned, about the fate of the United States, and we, each and every one of us, must do what we can to protect our Constitution and our country. Thank you for indulging me in this rather lengthy opening statement. It is an issue of unparalleled importance. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Senator Fisher. I'd like to recognize my colleagues that have joined us this morning, and we have Senator Chris Barnett and Senator Roy Canata. And I'd like to remind everyone that on the physical note, there's no impact. It's all administrative in nature. And also, for the people of Guam listening, the bill is not only in reference to the Constitution, but it even applies to the territory, the Organic Act. And many of us were probably going to say, we're never going to have an insurrection or rebellion on Guam. You don't know until it happens. But at least if this is in place, when it does happen, the Guam Election Commission will take the appropriate action as needed when the time comes. And with that, Senator Burnett, do you have anything you want to ask?
No, sir, I just came to listen. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Senator Canata, do you have anything you want to bring up? None? Ms. Pangilinan, maybe you may want to comment on your administrative role that you would take. I mean, just so that people go home and understand that, you know, you play the role only when you need to play the role. Otherwise, you're like, the law's passed, it's a new section. You may want to comment on that.
Yeah, Hafaday and good morning. Si Maria Pangilinan, Executive Director of the Guam Election Commission. I'm here to just actually answer questions or concerns with regard to the bill. With regard to enforcing it, I want the public to know that the way we get our information for our straw poll is through the websites of the two political parties. And so once they've already formally nominated their candidates, then we put them on the ballot with the approval of our commissioners. And that's how we do it. With regard to the statement about not having engaged in insurrection, for other than the presidential candidates, we would, you know, I'm envisioning just adding it on to the statement of qualifications, that the person shall not, have not engaged in that way. But with regard to the straw poll to the presidential, that would be a little bit more tricky, and I will have to look into it. Fair enough?
All right. Do you have any closing statement you wanted to give on your bill, Senator Fisher?
Yes, and thank you very much. The closing statement is simply this, just God bless Guam. God bless the United States, and God bless the Constitution of the United States. This is a time for citizens to act. We've only got 251 days left. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Fisher. There being no one present to testify on this bill, this hearing is now concluded. I want to thank everyone for attending this hearing and providing feedback and suggestions. Bill 241-37 COR, public hearing is now adjourned. The time now is 9:41. Ms. Pangilinan for being, and my colleagues for attending. Thank you. Take care.